A new documentary released by Adam Zivo and funded by the Centre for Responsible Drug Policy explores the harms of safer supply on Canadian youth. The documentary Government Heroin 2 sheds light on the story of a teenager who became addicted to hydromorphone and died due to safer supply diversion in BC. It highlights how easily harmful drugs can get from the government's safe supply programs into the hands of children. Adam Zivo, founder of the Centre for Responsible Drug Policy, joined us to share more.
So the documentary covers the story of Camilla Sword, a 14-year-old girl who died of drug-related causes in 2022 after developing an addiction to hydromorphone, which was diverted from safer supply programs. Camilla's story caused a national scandal when it was first brought to light in 2023, partially because the federal government and BC government denied that safer supply drugs are being diverted to the street and causing youth to develop addictions. Though Camilla's story was covered in the national media, it was only in writing. And unfortunately, writing can't capture the full reality of what it means to suffer from addiction. It can't capture the tears of her father. It can't capture the incredulity in her friends' voices when they describe how no one will believe them when they say that they were accessing safer supply. So I thought that it was necessary to create this documentary to show Canadians what is actually happening in our streets and to give them a more visceral appreciation of the safer supply diversion scandal. I hope that this documentary helps shift the narrative around safer supply and harm reduction more generally by showing people that this is actually happening. Unfortunately, there's a great deal of disinformation being peddled around safer supply, predominantly by ideologically minded activists who deny that this diversion crisis is happening. And it is easy to be confused about which side is more trustworthy when you don't actually get to see the testimonials of people who've been harmed by diversion. An underlying problem here is that many of the victims of safer supply diversion don't want to speak on record because, unfortunately, drug stigmatization is, well, I mean, there's a huge stigma against people who have suffered through addiction, right? Um, and so for these survivors, they often have to speak off record. And that creates questions about, well, do they actually exist and what did they actually experience? But I hope that by giving Canadians a chance to see this in a more visceral way, that they'll understand that this is a crisis that needs to be solved. So the Safe Supply program is predominantly associated with British Columbia, but we have to keep in mind that it is available all across Canada, including in Ontario. In fact, one point that people aren't generally aware of is that safer supply is, in a sense, more unregulated in Ontario compared to BC. So, for example, in BC, you're only allowed to give a safer supply patient up to 14 hydromorphone pills a day. There are some programs in the province that exceed those guidelines and they have their own special guidelines, but that is the general rule. In Ontario, you can receive up to 30 or 40 pills a day, and that's much more normal. So I think that sometimes, because so much focus has been put on BC, Canadians in other regions don't have an appreciation for what is happening in their own backyards and how these communities are flooding, sorry, and how these opioids are flooding their communities as well.